Okay, class, this video is on Module 2.1, or Lesson 1 of Module 2, and it's about frequency distributions. And if you remember, Chapter or Module 2 is about descriptive statistics. So we have a big blob of data, we have a data set, and we want to learn like everything we can about the data set. And one of the best ways is a frequency distribution. How is the data distributed? All right, what are the values of the data and how often do they occur? Those are the two things that a frequency distribution tells you. What are the possible values and how often do they occur? All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is a chart that tells you that. And there's a lot of terms here that I want to go through that are important for you to know to do the homework and the tests. And it's kind of information that's somewhat universal. But anyway, look at this thing, this chart here. All right, so we have in one column here the frequency. All right, right here we have the frequency. And this is saying there's 3 data points that are in between 155 and 190. So maybe one of the data points is 160, and that's one of the 3. But it's between, it's in this range here, this range of 155 to 190. And it shows us that 7 data points are in this range, all right? So this is a frequency, and this is called a class. Each one of these ranges here is called a class, all right? And the number on the left side, the lower number, is called the lower class limit, right? Lower class limit, all right? And the one on the right side, or the higher number, is called the upper class limit. I'll just write upper, okay? So these are the classes, and in this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 classes. And these are the lower classes. These are the lower class limits. These are the upper class limits. And these are the number of data points that fall in those classes. Does that make sense? Okay, so the next thing that you want to know is how wide are these classes? What's the class width? All right, class width. All right, how wide are these? And you think you might just subtract 155 from 190 and take the difference, and you'd get the width. But that's not really going to work. That's not what you do. What you do is, and be careful about that, is you can subtract any of the lower limits from each other. Like you can take 227, let's do it over here, 227 minus, all right, so we're going to get 6, 11 is 2, 26. It looks like, or no, 3, sorry, 36. All right, so the class width is 36, all right? Now, if I took 26 minus 90, if I look at these two, that's also going to give me the same class width, all right? So you can take any of these two or any of these two pairs and find the class width, all right? So the class width here is 36, all right? So that takes care of these first 2 columns. The midpoint is the middle of the class, all right, the middle of the class. And basically, to get that point there, you just add the lower limit plus the upper limit and divide by 2. It's an average, so you would go 155 plus 190 divided by 2, and that's going to give you 172.5. All right, so these two midpoints, if you notice, they are also going to be 36 units apart. All right, so actually once you find the first midpoint, if you get that right, and you add 36 to each of these, you'll get the rest of them. But in general, the midpoints are the center of the class, and you get that by taking the average of these two numbers. Okay. All right. So this next column here, we've got two columns left. The next one is the relative frequency, and what that is, it's the number of data points in this class relative to the total number of data points, right? So what percent of the data is 3? 3 data points are what percent of the data? So you're just going to take the frequency, in this case is for this first class, it's 3. All right, and then we'll divide that by the total number of data points, right? So the total number of data points here is 30. If I added all those data points up, those counts, I would get 30. So this relative frequency is going to be 3 divided by 30, or 0.1, or 10% of the data, all right? So 10% of the data is in this first class. Obviously, this one here has the most data in it. All right, it has 7 data points. That's 23% of the data. Okay, so now that's what relative frequency is. What's the frequency relative to the total number of data points? All right, so this last column, what is that? Cumulative frequency. Cumulative frequency. That means that you take the first frequency and you just bring it over. The next one, you take the 2, add it to all the class frequencies before that. So it's going to be 2 plus 3. All right, that's going to be 5. Then it's going to be 5 plus 2 plus 3. That'll give you 10. Notice, if you just take this number, like the next one here is 6, and you add it to the previous cumulative frequency, you'll get the next number. Right? But what does this mean? The cumulative frequency is just the number of data points in that class plus all the previous data points, all right, plus the count of all the data points beforehand. And so that's the cumulative frequency. I hope that clears things up. If you look at this last column, all right, this number is going to be the sample size. See how these two add up? Because basically you've added up all of the counts of all the data, and that's what you're always going to get in the last class. All right, and then if you add up the relative frequency, I've got 10% here, 7% here. If you add all these up, you're going to get 1 or 100% of the data. All right, so this chart I hope I made that clear going through each of the definitions on here. You have your class, lower class limits, upper class limits, frequencies, midpoints, and relative and cumulative frequencies.